Good evening, everyone. Welcome to your fourth lecture of RC. Okay, if some of you have joined, let's start. A fourth lecture of RC. Okay, if some of you have joined, let's start. Okay, so just to give you a quick recap of what has been done so far, we've had 3 sessions of RC, and I think we've discussed quite a few things. We started with understanding how to read RCs, how to pull out keywords and key phrases. We also looked at main idea and related questions. We started with types of RCs, understanding question types of RCs. And then we looked at main idea, gist, and related questions. We went on to examine logical structure and related questions. And in today's lecture, we're looking at inference and related questions. So there was this 1 week's gap of no RC lecture, but we discussed instead syllogisms and this entire gamut of questions called statement assumption, statement conclusion, etc. Right? Why did we do that? Why did we look at syllogisms and rest of LR, as we call it, rest of logical reasoning, which is learning to identify assumptions, learning to identify strong arguments, etc. Because that reasoning is important, right? More important than that reasoning is your basic understanding of inferences. What is an inference? In syllogisms, you described an inference as, defined an inference as a statement or a conclusion drawn about the unknown on the basis of the known, correct? Now, this is the notion with which we are going to take things ahead, okay? Just a few, statements for us to warm up our mind and start relating to what inferences are. Here is your first screen, all right? And what we just mentioned a while ago, something that must be true based on what is explicitly stated in the passage, something that must be true, correct? Or a conclusion drawn about the unknown on the basis of what is known. So what is known is the given data. What is unknown is that conclusion that we draw, correct? How are the questions normally phrased? One of the most common ways of phrasing an inference question is actually giving that word. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage, correct? Or another common word that comes with reference to inference questions is the author suggests or implies. What does the author suggest? What does he imply? Or the author, which of the following is most strongly supported by the given information? The author is least likely to agree with which of the following? Which of the following conclusions is best supported by the statements above? If the above statements are true, or if the given data, if the data given in the RC is true, which of the following must be true, etc. Right? So we know that the word suggests or implies. So when an author says something, he suggests or implies something, which I, as the reader, end up inferring, correct? The reader infers, the author or the speaker suggests or implies, okay? Let's take this ahead. So let's look at this statement. The statement is, recent advances in molecular biology make it likely that many school textbooks will be rewritten. Okay, what does this say? Recent advances in molecular biology make it likely that many school textbooks will be rewritten. Inference, many school textbooks will be rewritten. Would you say this is a correct inference? I know in the last lecture, some of you were, some of you are posting something on the live chat, and I am unable to, access the live chat during the lecture. But I do encourage all of you, if you want to have some sort of a discussion, there should be some faculty on the YouTube group available, some verbal faculty. I'm sure you can post your queries there and also take up your discussion there. All right. So can we take this as an inference? Is this an inference? Can I say many school textbooks will be rewritten? Look at the word will there. Is that possible? Is though the word will is given here, is that the point that the author is making? Recent advances in molecular biology make it likely that many school textbooks will be rewritten. So my inference cannot be a definitive one, right? Will is a definite word, a word that indicates something that will happen in the future. Many textbooks, school textbooks, are likely to be rewritten. Can I take this? Yes. Is the second one my correct inference? Yes, it is. Why? The word likely is important. They are likely to be rewritten. Make it likely that many school textbooks will be rewritten. Many school textbooks are likely to be written, right? Let's look at the second one. Sam eats a lot of chocolates. Eating chocolates is bad for health. So can I infer Sam has bad teeth? Sorry, eating chocolates is bad for teeth. All right, teeth hai. So can I infer that Sam has bad teeth? Sam eats a lot of chocolates. Eating chocolates is bad for teeth. Sam has bad teeth. Can we say this? No, we can't. You will say that, no, ye to galat hai. Can I take this inference? Sam may have bad teeth? Yes, I can. Sam may have bad teeth. So why is Sam has bad teeth wrong? Why is it this wrong? Because I have three pieces of information here. I have three pieces of information. Sam is one piece of information. Eating chocolates is another piece of information. Teeth or bad for teeth is another piece of information. Correct? If you look at it, Sam, the piece of information Sam is not directly connected with a piece of information bad for teeth. It's not directly associated. There is a middle term association. Now we're going back to syllogisms. A is B and B is C. So what would I infer about A and C? I can infer multiple things about A and C. I can talk about A and C being some. I can talk of A and C having an all connection. I can talk of A and C having no relation. There are three possibilities between Sam and bad for teeth, or A and C, correct? Which is why you cannot say that Sam definitely has bad teeth. He could have bad teeth. He may have bad teeth. It's a possibility that exists because I have three possible scenarios that come about when I'm talking of A is B and B is C, right? Which is why I take this probable inference. Next, some software vendors recently implemented rigorous licensing procedures. Some software vendors recently implemented rigorous licensing procedures. So, most software vendors recently implemented rigorous licensing procedures. You're going to straight away tell me, "Arey ma'am, ye to galat hai," right? Q, most. Some is a smaller term than most. If my term given here were an all, if the quantifying word were an all, then all, I can very well withdraw a most from an all, a some from an all, and a many from an all, or even a few from an all. But can I infer most, which is a bigger term, from some? Definitely not, correct? Can I infer an all from a most? Definitely not, right? If a most were given, I could infer some or many or even few, correct? So obviously this is incorrect. A few software vendors recently implemented rigorous licensing procedures. This is correct, okay? Let's take this learning ahead. So what exactly is this elimination technique, all right? Because in inference questions, the process of eliminating incorrect options is very important. How do I eliminate incorrect options, right? Let's look at that. And we're going to take a paragraph to understand how to eliminate options, all right? Here is a paragraph. I'm giving you about a minute to read this. Take a quick look at this, and then we're going to discuss this. Okay. I'm sure you finished. I'm sure you finished. So what is this paragraph all about? It talks of how there are two types of historians who have different perspectives, right? Who have different perspectives. Who are these historians mentioned? They are traditional historians and social historians. The traditional historians focus on description of events like wars and how they affected history. And the social historians focus more on human suffering. Correct? They focus on the outcomes of these wars, etc. Although the focus of description is usually common between the two. Very important. You know, these modifiers, these adverbs are extremely important when it comes to inferences, right? The focus of description. What do you mean by the focus of description? The incident of history that is being talked about. You know, that event of history that is being described. So both types of historians might be describing the same event, the same historical event. The focus of description is usually common, but the narrative is completely different, often contradictory. How they describe it, they might be describing the same event, but how they describe it is what? Completely different. And sometimes often contradictory. They contradict each other. So what do we mean by the narrative? The description. They might be describing the same event, but they describe it. They might be talking of the same event, but the way in which they describe it is completely different, right? Now let's look at the options. So this is the main idea here. Two different types of historians describe an event of history totally differently, completely differently. Let's look at the various options. Okay. Now, let's start with the first one. The narrative of an event can help identify the background of the historian who wrote it. Is this correct? I wish I could take a quick poll, right, and ask you, what do you think of this? Is this correct? Many of you will say yes. Probably a quick look at the various options and you will arrive at one as the option. Okay. But no, one is not the option, not the correct answer. Why? The paragraph only tells me that the two different types of historians, when they describe an event, their narrative is completely different. That does not mean that I can use a narrative and identify the background of the historian who wrote it. They're two different things. The data given to me in the passage is A describes an event in a certain way. A talks of an event in a certain way. Okay? Or these two historians describe an event in a certain way. Their narrative is different. Does not mean that I can use the narrative to identify who wrote it. A is B does not mean B is A. All A are B does not mean all B are A. I can't say that, look, I can look at the narrative. That's not the data given to me in this passage. It only says that I can, these two different historians describe an event completely differently. It doesn't tell us that I can use a narrative to identify the background of the historian who wrote it. Okay? No text of history can satisfy both the social and traditional historians alike. No text of history is satisfying. One, it's extreme. No text of history. We are not talking, secondly, of texts of history which can satisfy both these historians. Why will I want to infer that? Where is the data? You need a reference point for an inference. You need some data as reference. There is no reference here, right? I cannot infer this. History textbooks should try to mix the accounts of social and traditional historians when creating curriculum. History textbooks should try to mix everything. Where are we discussing history textbooks? Where are we discussing? Creating curriculum. There is no discussion on creating curriculum. There is no discussion on history textbooks, mixing these accounts, right? What am I left with? 4 and 5. Now, 4 is an interesting case. 4 is a case of an incorrect causal association. What is this causal association? You know, in syllogisms, you learned all about if X, then Y, correct? We'll come back to this slide, okay? You learned all about if X, then Y, correct? What is if X, then Y? If X happens, the Y happens, right? If a cause happens, then an effect happens, correct? What does if X, then Y mean? What does the if here indicate? When a cause happens, whenever a cause happens, every time a cause happens, the effect happens. Let's look at a very simple example here. If he goes to the market, he buys chocolates, right? The cause-effect connection. So what are my valid inferences when I have a statement like this? What can I validly say? Validly infer, right? I can infer that X happened, therefore Y. What is X? The cause happened, therefore Y happened, therefore the consequence happened. And what is the cause here in the given statement? Going to the market. If he goes to the market, he buys chocolates, right? So the cause happened, the consequence happened. Can I infer not Y, therefore not X? Yes, I can. What is not Y? The consequence did not happen. Therefore, the cause did not happen. Obviously, if the consequence does not happen, the cause wouldn't happen, right? The consequence itself did not occur, the cause didn't occur. But what is invalid here? Y, therefore X. What is Y, therefore X? The consequence happened, therefore the cause happened. Why, what's wrong? Why can't I say कि consequence हुआ है, इसलिए cause हुआ है? I bought chocolates, so I must have gone to the market. Because I am saying I did not buy chocolates, so I did not go to the market. Why can't I say I bought chocolates and therefore I must have gone to the market? Because the statement uses a if X, then Y. The statement doesn't tell you only when he goes to the market does he buy chocolates. And only conditional would be totally different. If you're talking of an only conditional, then let's go to the next slide. This would be your presentation, correct? Only in the condition of going to the market does he buy chocolates. So now I can very well say he bought chocolates. So he must have gone to the market because there's no other way in which he will buy chocolates. He'll only buy chocolates by going to the market. So in this case, I can also very well say he bought chocolates, therefore he went to the market, and he did not go to the market, so he did not buy chocolates. Because he only buys chocolates by going to the markets. There are no other ways in which he buys chocolates. So he didn't go to the market. The consequence did not occur. Therefore, the cause did not occur. Correct? This is valid here. But can I say these are valid here? Can I say these are valid in this case? Can I say not X? What is not X? I did not, the cause didn't happen. I did not go to the market. Therefore, I did not buy chocolates. No, I can't, because this is not the only way in which I buy chocolates. There can be multiple other ways in which I buy chocolates, right? There can be multiple other ways in which I buy chocolates. Going to the market is one of it. So just because I did not go to the market doesn't necessarily imply that I did not buy chocolates. Just because I bought chocolates doesn't imply I went to the market. I could have bought chocolates in other ways too, right? So when you have an if X, then Y, a cause effect, you can only infer X, therefore Y, which is cause, therefore effect, not the effect, therefore not the cause. You cannot consider effect, therefore cause as an inference. You cannot consider not cause, therefore not effect as an inference. These two invalid ones here, these two invalid ones here become valid in the case of an only X, therefore Y. These two valid inferences here become invalid in the case of only X, therefore Y. Correct? Only in X does Y happen. Okay. Why did we need to discuss this? Why did we need to talk of this? Because you normally have cause effect connections in, in such paragraphs or in RCs as well. You have some sort of cause effect connection. Now, if you look at this paragraph, what is the cause here and what is the effect? The cause is two historians from a different background. If I have two historians from a different background, what is the outcome? Their description of an event of history is completely different. When two historians or when historians of different backgrounds or two different backgrounds talk or describe an event in history, their description is completely different, often contradictory. Correct? If X, then Y. What is X here? If historians of two different types give you a narrative of a historical event, that narrative is completely different. What does option 4 say? If two historians from the same background write about a historical event, their narratives will be similar. Now, this is a case of not X, therefore not Y. Why is this not X? Two historians from different backgrounds. What does this option say? Two historians from the same background write about a historical event. What does the original say? Their narratives would be completely different. What does this say? Their narratives will be similar. So it's a direct refuting of the cause effect here. You're saying not X, therefore not Y, which we understand is an incorrect inference, right? This is an incorrect inference because what can we talk of? We can only talk of X, therefore Y, not Y, therefore not X, not Y, therefore not X. You can't talk of anything else. A very common, you won't necessarily have an if mentioned in such options, but this is a very common incorrect option given when it comes to inference questions. You'll have a wrong cause effect association made, which is not given in your passage, or you could have this kind of incorrect cause effect inference drawn, right? So of course it won't be so evident. You might not have that if word given there very explicitly making it that if X then Y kind of statement. But yes, this happens to be one common option distractor. Okay. So we've eliminated 4 as well. What are we left with? 5. If I had asked you, you would have told me that the fifth one is the first elimination, correct? आपने शायद फिफ्थ ऑप्शन को फर्स्ट एलिमिनेट किया होगा क्योंकि इसमें तो मैम एक्सट्रीम वर्ड है, नेवर है, करेक्ट? We have this notion in our mind that wherever I come across an extreme word, it is necessarily incorrect. Not so. If it's supported by data in the passage, why will I say it's necessarily incorrect? There is data in the passage that supports it. What is the data here? The narrative is said to be completely different. Explicitly given, the stance taken in the paragraph is an extreme stance. The narrative is completely different. It's often contradictory, right? So why can't I take this inference? And what is the inference? A social historian can never describe an event like a traditional historian does, and vice versa. A traditional historian can never describe an event like a social historian. This going by the data given. Since the data given is this, I can very well infer this, right? We've eliminated everything. Now, what has been the basis for our elimination of everything? Let's do a quick summing up. So all A are B doesn't necessarily mean the reverse is true, that all B are A. Look at those generalized words. wherein you take words as all, always, everything, anything, never, none, nothing. If none of these words are explicitly stated in the passage or supported by data in the passage, you cannot infer them. You cannot have such words in your options. Okay. But if they are supported by the data, by what is given in the passage, obviously you can. Next, extreme. So a very thin line between generalized and extreme or exaggerated words. Okay. You can actually take these two things as more or less the same. Don't break your head so much over that. But the point is, even this set of words, only, unless that word only Ram is capable of doing this. Only Sham has achieved this, accomplished this. Unless that's given, you cannot infer an only about something in the options. Must, solely, now you're limiting something to, making it extreme, exclusively, definitely. These are all extreme words. And unless and until it is explicitly stated, I can't take this. Based on extraneous information, obviously anything that goes beyond the discussion, outside the scope of the passage, I can't infer that. Based on wrong causal association, we looked at that and we said this is a typical incorrect option. You know that simple restating of information given. So there is an A is B given. A simple restating of that is not an inference. How can that be an inference? Because an inference is defined as a conclusion drawn about the unknown on the basis of the known. Correct? So this cannot be our inference. Right? And we finished this as well. So we'll skip these two slides. Okay. So with that understanding, okay, with that elimination in mind, let's also have some more understanding of inferences. Okay. Some very brief sentences and statements. So look at this one, the first one here. Poor people do not earn enough to pay taxes. Rich people hire advocates and accountants to evade taxes. Taxation system fails to recover as much tax as it should. All these comparative forms, as much tax as it should, more tax than, or the most tax. These comparative forms are extremely important, okay? Because one of your options, whether it's inference questions or any other questions, incorrect options normally play with this data. Taxation system fails to recover as much tax as it should. So what's our inference here? Taxation system should be scrapped. Can we take this inference? Taxation system should be scrapped. That's an extreme stance, because all that we are saying here is that taxation system fails to recover as much tax as it should. As much tax as it should cannot mean that the system itself is bad or is faulty, that I do away with the system. It is supposed to recover some more tax, which it's not doing, right? I've also only considered two parts of the population, just two parts of that entire spectrum, poor people and rich people. There are far more, there's an entire middle class in the spectrum of people, which I have not considered, right? So definitely a generalization, very extreme stand. Young people are impulsive. No impulsive person ever achieved big. You cannot achieve anything big till you become old. Now look at this. Young people are impulsive. No impulsive person ever achieved big. So can I say you cannot achieve anything till you become old? In syllogisms, we are also taught one thing, that a syllogism is all about three terms: A is B, B is C, and therefore what is A and C? We tried, or A is B, B is C, and C is D. So what can be the connection between A and D, etc. Right? You're basically looking at a middle term connection between two terms. So where did this old come from? This old is not mentioned at all. It is not part of the given data. All I am told is young people are impulsive and an impulsive person doesn't achieve big. So you cannot achieve anything big till you become old. Certainly an incorrect inference. We cannot infer this, right? Next, standardized tests are a very good measure of aptitude. Psychometric tests are a very good measure of attitude. Good employees fit their roles both in aptitude and attitude. Okay. Standardized tests are a very good measure of aptitude. Psychometric tests are a very good measure of attitude. And if you're a good employee, you fit their roles in both in aptitude and attitude. So can this be my inference? Let's first figure out what is cause and what is effect before looking at the inference. If you clear an aptitude and an attitude test, you are a good employee who fits the role, correct? Someone who clears aptitude and attitude is a good employee, a fitting employee, someone who fits the roles. Now, what is the inference here? So what's the cause? Clearing aptitude and attitude. What is the effect? You therefore fit the roles. You're a good employee. Inference given is if a company hires employees without conducting either a standardized test or a psychometric test, it will not find employees that fit the roles that they are put in. Clearly a case of not X, therefore not Y. What is X? Fitment of aptitude and attitude. What is Y? Being a good employee. If a company hires employees without conducting both, either a standardized test or a psychometric test. So if not attitude and aptitude, you are not a good employee or a fitting employee. You can see that this is a case of a not X, therefore not Y, which is incorrect. One more. It takes a human 2 seconds to sneeze. 1.8 people die in the world every second. Okay. So let's look at our inference here. 1.8 people died when you sneezed. What will you say? Is this a correct inference? It takes a human 2 seconds to sneeze. 1.8 people die in the world every second. Don't look at the math part of it. Look at the logicality of it. 1.8 people died when you sneezed. Surely incorrect. Why is it incorrect? It's a simple case of how we connect two pieces of information that are not directly connected. So I'm speaking here of human sneeze. Takes 2 seconds. In every second, 1.8 people die. So A is B and a B is C. So what is the connection between a human sneeze and 1.8 people dying? The connection is established via time, every second or 2 seconds. So can I say 1.8 people died when you sneeze? They may have died. They may have died. I cannot draw a definitive inference about human sneeze and people dying because there is a middle term connection between these two terms. Okay. So 1.8 people may have died, but you can't say 1.8 people definitely died when you sneezed, right? Okay. Quite a few things that we discussed. I hope all of this is clear to you. Okay. Fundamental thoughts and fundamental incorrect inferences, when it comes to given data. If you're clear with all of this, if you've understood all of this, let us take a look at something more, that is perhaps paragraphs, right? Ideal case would be discussing an entire RC and looking at the inferences there. But an RC, lengthy RCs take time, a little difficult to present lengthy RCs. So for now, let's look at short paragraphs and see how we can eliminate options here. Okay. Here is our first question. Okay. I'll give you about 2 minutes to check this out. All right. Read this question, look at these options, eliminate the options, and then we'll discuss it. Okay. Pretty simple one, not very difficult, but let's look at eliminating here. So if you understand the details given in this paragraph, you will see that vitamin C, ascorbic acid, vitamin C is an antioxidant. And finally, I'm told an antioxidant which prevents formation of free radicals is known to help in the prevention of cancer. Okay. So can I say vitamin C can help in prevention of cancer or will help in prevention of cancer? There is, in the paragraph, there is no direct connection between vitamin C and prevention of cancer. Is there a direct relationship here? No. How is vitamin C, which is available in citrus fruits such as lemons and oranges, how is it connected to the prevention of cancer? It is connected to the prevention of cancer by the middle term antioxidant, correct? Vitamin C is an antioxidant. Antioxidants help in prevention of cancer. So let's look at the options now. Obviously, you will eliminate B. If a person does not consume antioxidants, he will develop cancer. It says antioxidants are help in the prevention of cancer. Doesn't mean not X, therefore not Y. Ye to galat hai, correct? Anything. We looked at how such words are generalizations, right? I'm only talking of antioxidants prevents free formation of free radicals. doesn't mean that anything. How can you broaden the scope? आपको सिर्फ antioxidants के बारे में information दिया है. You cannot broaden that to anything. That becomes a exaggeration or generalization. So that is incorrect. Vitamin C is the only vitamin known to help in prevention of cancer. It's not mentioned as the only vitamin known to help in prevention of cancer, right? Vitamin C is the only mentioned vitamin. Doesn't make it the only vitamin known to help in prevention of cancer. It's the only one mentioned here, but the word only vitamin known is not given, correct? So all of these are extreme. Now we're left with A and D. Eating lemons and oranges will help prevent cancer. We just looked at this a while ago, that when I have, some connection established between two terms by a middle term. So what is the connection between lemons and oranges and cancer? Lemons and oranges contain vitamin C. Vitamin C is an antioxidant. Antioxidants help prevent cancer. So can I say lemons and oranges help prevent cancer? No. They will help prevent cancer? Definitely not. That's absolute, that's definitive. They may help prevent cancer. They could help prevent cancer. They can help prevent cancer, can be said. A possibility can be considered, but an absolute connection cannot be considered, correct? Which makes D our answer. Can help. We are talking of a possibility here, not an absolute statement, correct? So A galat hai, D is our answer, all right? D, option D is our answer. Let's look at one more. I hope this is clear to all of you. This one, okay. Read carefully and methodically apply the option elimination, correct? That elimination technique has to be very methodically applied. Please take a look at it. Maybe a minute again to solve this. You will have finished? Okay. Let's discuss this question. Let's start with option A. Okay, that's a better way. As global warming increases, more people will suffer eye damage. Look at the paragraph. It talks of ozone layer depletion has been a factor in global warming. So ozone layer depletion, what is one of the effects of ozone layer depletion? Global warming. But it has an additional adverse effect. So ozone layer depletion gives rise to global warming. Ozone layer depletion gives rise to another effect. What is this other effect? Where the ozone layer, where there are holes in the ozone layer, the harmful ultraviolet radiation reaches the earth and causes severe eye damage, right? Wherever harmful radiation reaches the earth because of the holes in ozone layer, there is severe eye damage. So one cause, ozone layer depletion, leads to two effects. A leads to B, A leads to C. A leads to B. What is B? Global warming. A leads to C. What is C? Severe eye damage. So can I make a connection between one effect and the other effect? Cause तो आपका ozone layer है. But this option, look at this option. It's making a connection between two effects. Both of these are outcomes. So as global warming increases, more people will suffer eye damage. No, this is incorrect. If you're saying A leads to two effects, one effect is B and one effect is C. I cannot connect B and C. I cannot say that there's a direct relationship between these two effects. Correct? There could be a connection. There is no unnecessary will connection to nahi hai. Correct? There could be a connection. Okay? In areas where there are no ozone holes in the atmosphere, there is no threat of damage to the eyes of animals. Ye to aapka no, not X, therefore not Y ho gaya, right? Where there are holes, there is a threat of eye damage. Where there are no holes, there is no threat of eye damage. That is not X, not Y. Ultraviolet radiation is the single largest preventable cause. Is this given here? Is this data, superlative data, is that given here somewhere? Is there any hint to it that it is one of the largest preventable causes of eye damage? Nahi diya hai. So why go into superlatives agar superlatives diya nahi hai, right? So extraneous, all right? Ozone layer depletion, or you can also call it extreme. Ozone layer depletion is reversible. अब ये reversible है कहाँ दिया है? ये भी going beyond the scope of the data. Why are you going beyond what is discussed? All I can infer here is at least some severe eye damage in humans with history of exposure to more sunlight than usual can be attributed to ultraviolet radiation. Why? There are at least, this harmful radiation now reaches the earth at some places. So at least kuch jagon mein, some severe eye damage can be attributed to ozone layer depletion. Correct? So all I can draw here, infer here is option E. Okay. I hope this is clear to you. Let's take a look at the next one. What is our next question? This is interesting. Take a look at this. Okay, let's discuss. I could very well represent this as a, as a Venn diagram for you, but let's understand first. So, some bureaucrats, don't miss the word some bureaucrats question the practice of file notation. So what's our discussion here? Our discussion is that of file notations. Okay. What is file notations? Noting down something in a file, correct? And bureaucrats say to bureaucratic files. Okay, government officials, government files. So they question writing something on the files saying that any casual remarks put on files during an initial review should not be used to question a bureaucrat's judgment in later years. Okay. So this is the reason given by some bureaucrats कि file notations मत करो. क्यों? Because you write something and those casual remarks should not be used against you later in later years. Okay. Then there is another set of bureaucrats, many bureaucrats. What do many bureaucrats say? They criticize the compulsion of putting remarks related to a file on the file corners, citing reasons like lack of space or an additional stress to not make any notation unless you are sure of your opinion. So what do some other bureaucrats say? That please don't write anything. Why do you want to, write anything? As it is, there is not much space on the file corners. And unless you are very sure, completely sure of your opinion, please don't write anything. Don't make any notation. So here you have two groups of bureaucrats questioning or giving their criticism of file notations. Why you should not write on files. And are there, are their reasons different? Yes, their reasons are different. Okay. So what can we infer? File notations are not a helpful practice. Some bureaucrats, many bureaucrats. So you have groups of bureaucrats who are objecting to this. Can you generalize it to, saying file notations are not helpful? That's a generalization, right? That's why I said these words are very important here. Noticing that we are talking about some and many is very important. Let's look at option C, okay? Or let's look at option E. Bureaucrats are often harassed by questioning their reasoning behind some file notations that they put many years back. Bureaucrats are often harassed. Matlab, they are often harassed. Abhi chal raha hai. This is an action that is currently going on. They are harassed. Where is the data here in the passage? What does the passage say? What they write should not be used to criticize a bureaucrat's judgment in later years. What they write should not is an opinion. Should not is an opinion. What I write should not be held against me later. Which means it could be held. It could be held against me later. It doesn't mean that it is being held against me. Right? I'm saying don't write something on the file क्योंकि ये शायद आपके खिलाफ यूज हो सकता है. It should not be used because it's my opinion that it could be used. It should not be used against you. Doesn't mean that they are often harassed. This is incorrect. They could be harassed is what the paragraph is suggesting. Okay. D. There are some advantages of file notations that the bureaucrats are unaware of. There could be. Why are we saying that there are some advantages? There could be. Who's saying that there aren't? But can I say there are? Do I have definitive information here? There could be. Is this given in the paragraph? No. There could be some advantages that the bureaucrats are unaware of. There are no advantages discussed. So why should we get into that? Correct? D is beyond the scope of discussion. Bureaucrats do not like decisions imposed on them. Which bureaucrats? The second group that is criticizing it, saying, don't write anything unless you are sure of your opinion. Please don't write anything unless you're sure of your opinion. So can I say all bureaucrats do not like decisions imposed on them? No, some. The ones who say you shouldn't write because as it is, there is lack of space. And unless you are completely sure of your opinion, please don't write anything. Right? So that I cannot generalize to all bureaucrats, or bureaucrats, meaning all bureaucrats do not like decisions. That's a generalization. So what am I left with? Option B. What is option B? They do not unanimously agree on disadvantages of file notations. Bureaucrats do not unanimously agree. Do all bureaucrats seem to have the same idea? No, some have a different idea, some others have a different idea. Regarding the disadvantages of file notations or not writing on files, they don't have a unanimous idea. My answer is B. I can only consider B here. B is the only safe inference. Everything else is eliminated. Correct? So I hope you get this, okay? Elimination and practicing elimination for inferences, and CAT is full of inferences. All your aptitude exams, all the bigger exams, CAT, SAT, they have plenty of inferences. My ability to eliminate options in inferences and arrive at what therefore can be safely inferred from the given data of the paragraph or passage is extremely important, right? So this is what we did here. We eliminated the incorrect options. Okay. So B is our answer. I hope this is clear to all of you. Okay. Let's look at the next one. So one more. Okay. We'll practice many such questions. This is a interesting one. Slightly challenging too, but yes, we should take this. Okay. You may need 2 minutes to read this. Okay. Because it's If you're finished reading, we can discuss this. I suppose you got about a minute and a half. So let's look at what the paragraph is. Archaeologists have an arduous task. And you know what the word arduous means? Difficult, correct? Difficult task every time they conduct excavation. Why? Because the artifacts that they find at, at a site do not always belong to that site. Very important, do not always belong to that site. Okay. In many documented instances, artifacts found at sites were misleading because these artifacts were brought to that site through floods or travelers centuries back, correct? So the artifacts did not belong to that place. They were brought there by floods or travelers. The current practice, therefore, is to first report artifacts in a prescribed format to a universal database. So whenever they come across any artifact, what do? They, report it to a universal database, right? The artifact is reported to a universal database. And if these artifacts do not, so the database checks them. If they don't match any previously discovered artifact from any remote site, then the archaeologists start studying these artifacts. So they do a matching process. Does this match with any artifacts found anywhere else in some other remote site? If not, that is when the archaeologist will start studying these artifacts independently. This process, what does this refer to? That process of referring an artifact to a universal database, getting it checked there, eliminating the possibility of it being connected with any other site. And then the archaeologists will start studying these artifacts independently. This in some cases means a long delay in initiating study. Sometimes, because this process has to be followed, it can mean a long delay, right? So what can you correctly infer? The task of an archaeologist is clearly one of the more difficult jobs in the world. One of the more difficult jobs in the world. Where do I have the other jobs mentioned here? So how can I establish a comparison and say, look, this is one of the more difficult jobs. The other jobs are not talked about. So how do I bring this comparison? Eliminate it. Archaeologists must be precise in identifying cultures of ancient civilization. They are expected to be precise. We'll just park this for now. Most studies about cultural evolution span over long durations due to procedural hassles. Most studies. What does our data say? This, in some cases, means a long delay in initiating study. Sometimes this happens. Most is a percentage term. Most is 90% and above. Can I say, therefore, this is what is meant here? Some cases, I cannot infer most. That's eliminated. Archaeologists rely only on artifacts to study the culture of an ancient civilization. We don't know. Artifacts are mentioned here, but nowhere in the paragraph am I told that they rely only on artifacts to study the culture of an ancient civilization, right? E. Archaeologists have no other way to verify uniqueness of an artifact except to report the artifact to the universal database. The paragraph tells me that this is the process followed, that it is reported to this universal database and it is verified there. That doesn't mean there is no other way. Has that been mentioned explicitly that this is the only way of verifying uniqueness? Nowhere mentioned, right? Has it been mentioned explicitly that there are no such other processes, no other such ways of verifying the uniqueness of an artifact? No, not mentioned. So why will I infer E? Correct? That's also incorrect, beyond the scope of whatever is discussed here. So what are we left with? Option B. So what is the implication of this passage? Sometimes you can see that the archaeologist undergoes a long delay in initiating study. He undergoes a long delay. He follows a long and tedious process, and only after that process is completed, he waits till it's completed. Only then does he start studying the artifacts. Why does he wait for such a long time? Because he cannot do some random studies. What is the point of this paragraph? What is the implication? What is the author trying to imply here? That look, an archaeologist is expected to be precise in identifying cultures of ancient civilizations. He must be precise in studying artifacts and connecting them with various civilizations. And because he has to be precise in his work, that is why he waits or undergoes such a long process. All right. So B is our answer. Difficult one, but again, by eliminating everything else, you will arrive at B. Right? Elimination is the key. Okay. Fine. I hope this is clear to you. Let's look at another one. Fairly challenging this is. Take a look at this. You might need a little more than maybe 2 minutes to understand this. Okay. Okay, let's discuss this. Quite a difficult one, isn't it? And look at what you are trying to infer here. Which of the following is the literary critic least likely to agree with? Okay, let's look at the data given in the paragraph. So the literary critic says, although Stevenson was loved by poetry readers all over the world, critics in his home country never found a reason to appreciate his work. So what is he suggesting by this? Across the world, people loved his work. He was loved by poetry readers all over the world, but critics in his home country never found a reason to appreciate his work. Something strange. That's so strange. What was the stand of the critics? According to the critics, Stevenson's poetry was either too simple to, to deserve appreciation or plagiarized. As a result, all works of Stevenson were published by non-English European publishers. So let's look at the options now. The reviews of critics affect a writer's chances of finding publishing house for his work. Okay, we are looking for the least likely to agree question. Least likely. Okay, for the reviews of critics affect his chances. Will he agree with this? Yes, he will. So let's first eliminate the ones that he will agree with. Why will he agree with this? Because he said that Stevenson's works were published by non-English European publishers. And why was that? Because his works were criticized in his own country. Therefore, his works were published by non-English European publishers. So the reviews of critics affects a writer's chances of finding publishing house for his work? Yes. In his own country, right? Yes. Non-English European publishers were not affected by reviews of English critics. Yes, the non-English European publishers published his poetry, so they were not affected by the reviews of English critics, correct? The Englishmen did not, English publishing houses did not publish it, but the non-English publishing houses published it, right? English critics were apparently biased against Stevenson. We'll keep that on hold, okay? English critics did not appreciate poetry written in simple language. English critics have explicitly said here, according to the critics, why did they reject Stevenson's poetry? Because it was too simple to deserve appreciation. So, will the critic agree with this idea? Yes, he will. English critics did not appreciate poetry written in simple language because the critics themselves have said this, and that is what has been quoted here, right? So D is what the author would agree with. Poetry readers across the world understood Stevenson's works better than the English critics. If I end up saying that poetry readers across the world, all right, understood Stevenson's work better, that will mean that there was a problem with Stevenson's works and a problem with the understanding of Stevenson's works in England. Englishmen were not able to understand Stevenson's work, and therefore there must have been a problem with Stevenson's writing, Stevenson's poetry. Correct? So that is not what he is. He will agree with this. He will. Yeah, let's just park E for a while. I think you'll understand E better when we end up taking C. Okay, let's talk of C, because this must be your confusion. English critics were apparently biased against Stevenson. Will the author agree with this? Yes, he will. Why? Because that's what the first line is saying. What does the first line suggest here? That he was loved by poetry readers all over the world, but in his home country, critics never found a reason to appreciate his work. Apparently, there must have been some bias. Look at that word, apparently. There must have been some bias against Stevenson. This first line suggests this. The first line clearly suggests this. So will the author agree with option C? Yes, the literary critic will agree with option C. Now come to option E. Is this the point he's making? The point he's making here is that there must have been something wrong with the critics in England because, they were the ones who didn't like Stevenson's poetry. Everybody else across the world loved it. So will he agree with the point that poetry readers across the world understood Stevenson's works better, which will mean that there was something wrong with Stevenson's work, and that's why people in his home country couldn't understand it? That's not what he's saying. The critic is trying to be positive about Stevenson's work and is speaking, trying to suggest something negative about the English critics. That means E is my answer, right? Least likely to agree is E. He would agree with everything else. All right. So tough one. I hope you understood this. Okay. So in fact, if you take E, the author will end up weakening his argument. He's trying to speak positively of Stevenson, that there was something wrong with the critics in England and Stevenson's work was positive. That's what he's trying to say. I hope this is understood. Tough one. One more. And there is one more question type that we'll talk about, right? Let's take a look at this. Yeah. So a minute quickly to read this paragraph. Let's discuss your answer. So, the debate between ethics and practicality is a regular occurrence, though being ethical is integral to succeeding in your role as an employee. If the organizations, and don't miss that we're talking of the organizations, if the organization's larger benefit is hurt by choosing ethics over practicality, the most frequent advice is to be practical. If the organization's larger benefit is hurt. This is because an organization larger benefit affects the livelihoods of many people employed with the organization. Let's look at the options. Let's start with E. Okay, we'll go in the reverse order. If the livelihood of many people is not at stake, one must always choose ethics over practicality. If the livelihood is at stake, the most frequent advice is to be practical. Not X, therefore not Y. You know, this is incorrect, right? Recruitment interviews test applicants on real life scenarios. The debate between ethics and practicality is a regular occurrence in recruitment interviews. So recruitment interviews test applicants on real life scenarios. The debate, or this scenario can even be a hypothetical one. Why am I saying that they test applicants on real life scenarios? Where is it given? It occurs, the debate occurs, doesn't mean that they test applicants on real life scenarios. The debate occurs in recruitment interviews. It is impossible to be both ethical and practical. You will have easily eliminated this, because impossible, strong word hai, right? It's an extreme word. I cannot take that. That's not what is said. It said that you generally end up choosing practicality if there is any such clash. Organizations have to frequently choose between ethical decisions and practical but unethical ones. Organizations have to frequently choose. मतलब ये ऐसा होता है. What is the data given? If the organization's larger benefit is hurt. If the organization's larger benefit is hurt by choosing ethics over practicality. अगर इस तरह का hypothetical scenario आता है, then this is the advice that is given. So you can't say कि ये generally होता है, right? All we can infer here is that since the most frequent advice given is to be practical, practicality and the organization's larger benefit is more important than the ethics of a person. Ethics of one man are not as important as the livelihood of many men. Because that's the frequent advice given, because your organization's larger benefit affects the livelihood of many people. So what do you compromise if you are caught in one such situation? You compromise your ethics and you choose practicality because the livelihood of many people are important. So A is our answer. Look at how, that which is implied, that which is, suggested by this entire paragraph. That's what we're taking here. Okay. I think we've discussed quite a few questions. There is an interesting CAT 1998 passage, but that's a lengthy one. So, discussing it on this YouTube format is a little unwieldy, not very easy, because it's a lengthy passage, and then, that to and fro movement becomes a little difficult. I would have loved to, discuss this. But in any case, I think the point should be got now that even if it's a passage, I should know that it's the same inferences and inference distractions or distractors, option distractors that can come in. So my focus should be on eliminating these so-called incorrect inferences in order to zero in at the right inference. Okay. Here is a slightly different question, maybe not much tested, but could be tested, could appear in your passages. And this is also part of critical reasoning, just as inference questions are a part of your critical reasoning. What is this question? Called further information. Okay. Further information can also be called evaluate the argument, assess the main idea of the author, right? So what are we looking for here? We're looking for, we are asked to take a question from the options, choose a question from the options, the answer of which, if the answer to that question given in the options, okay, if the answer to it is yes, it might support or weaken the author's main idea of the paragraph or of the passage. If the answer to that question is no, I could say it refutes or supports. It can refute or support the main idea of the passage. So we are actually looking at a question which will give you an answer of yes, no, and affect the conclusion in some way, affect the main idea of the author. So first step, read the passage or the paragraph, identify the main idea or the conclusion, the main point being made. Eliminate all those options, those questions that you think are, just not within the scope of discussion. That's not even related to the discussion. So easily eliminated. Now you might be left with one or two options or three options, especially the ones that give you this kind of yes no answers, right? Binary questions, not always but generally, binary questions that give you that yes no answer. Try answering that question with a yes and how does it matter to the main idea. Try answering that question with a no and see how it matters to the main idea. And finally arrive at that option which actually affects the conclusion. In both cases, right, it changes the conclusion. So let's look at a paragraph passage given. Okay. Now, here is a paragraph. All right. Here is a paragraph. And the question is, the answer to which of the following questions would be most important in determining whether implementing the proposal would be likely to achieve the desired result. So further information, there is a passage given, there's a main point, but you're asking for further information. So which of these questions will you choose? That will give you further information, using which further information can be a yes, no, using which you will end up saying that the main idea here is valid, strong, or the main idea here is a weak one, invalid one. Okay. Take a quick reading of this and we'll discuss the answer. You just need about a minute. It's a very easy one. Okay. This is an easy one. I'm sure you will have arrived at the answer, correct? So which question would be most important? What is the recommendation being given here? So what's the main idea of this paragraph? Safety officials are recommending that you should install a carbon monoxide monitor in your house. They say that if this carbon monoxide monitor is installed, it would give you a warning if there is any leakage, carbon monoxide leakage. And therefore, you can avoid the poisonings and deaths that would otherwise have occurred, correct? That would otherwise occur. So please install a carbon monoxide monitor is the point that the author is making here. Now, what is important information, mere liye, to decide whether I should install a carbon monoxide monitor or not? I need to know very clearly, when does this carbon monoxide monitor give an alert? Correct? When does it give an alarm? Does it give an alarm when the carbon monoxide leaks are, the carbon monoxide levels have reached a poisonous level, a dangerous level? Maybe I have no time to escape. Is it going to give an alarm, say, well in advance, 15, 20 minutes in advance, or a half an hour in advance, even before the monoxide leakage comes to a, a poisonous level, dangerous level? So this is very important. Yes, the carbon monoxide levels signal an alert well before, well in advance. And it helps the residents escape to a ventilated area. Yes, then the recommendation is a valuable one. No, then the recommendation is meaningless. Why should I waste money on installing a monitor in my house? Correct? So C is our answer. How often do carbon monoxide leaks occur? That's something that is on, that's an assumption, a fundamental assumption in this entire discussion, that carbon monoxide leaks hote hain. If you question that, you are dismantling, doing away with the entire argument. Argument ही exist nahi karega if you question that. Do carbon monoxide leaks occur? Yes, they do. That's why please install a monitor. Now, our focus here is to look at whether this recommendation is a strong one or a weak one, not question that whether carbon monoxide leaks hote hai ya nahi. Correct? So A will destroy the entire argument and make it null, right? Discussion ही नहीं रहेगा. B, where in the home would the monoxide leaks be located? Wherever it is located, doesn't matter, right? How soon after the dangerous levels of the gas are dissipated can they return to their homes? Doesn't matter, irrelevant. Can they detect other household hazards? That is not the discussion. That is not something that is being guaranteed by this monitor, correct? So our answer is option C. Pretty simple one, fairly straightforward. You have to first identify what is the point being made. Let's say, even if it's a lengthy passage, what is the main idea? And if I want to say that the author's recommendation or suggestions given in the passage is a meaningful one, which question will I take? That question, if it says yes, it can, prove the author's argument or suggestion, right? If that question gives me an answer as no, then the author's recommendation or suggestion is meaningless, correct? This is the approach, all right? Further information question, seeking further information in order to evaluate the author's argument, all right? So I think we've discussed quite a bit, okay? We could stop here. And two question types that we looked at, basically, you had an inference question and you have a inference ke elimination options, eliminating the incorrect options that we looked at, and one question of further information, okay? So I think this should be enough for today, right? It's not a very lengthy lecture. Solving an RC would have been useful, but I'm sure you can apply this, the elimination pattern that we discussed, you can apply this to RCs as well, okay? Yes, so that is all from us for today. I hope all of you will join us for the analysis, EOM 8 analysis, Endeavour Open Mock CAT analysis that will begin at 9 p.m. All right. I hope all of you also wrote that exam, wrote that mock. It was the new pattern. And in our description box of this video, you will find a lot of links. Please do join our Telegram groups, where you are encouraged, absolutely encouraged to post your queries, even verbal queries, even your RC doubts, whatever is related to your EOMs. If you've taken any of our mocks and you have some doubts there, you're most welcome to post your queries. We will take up your discussion there, right? And do also participate in our further test series. You will have seen a couple of our mocks by now. Do register for further mocks, all right? You'll find all these links in the description box given of this video, right? Thank you so much. I hope this was useful learning. Thank you.